3Xs episode 4. Let's go. This week we're going to do Salt Lake City, Utah. It's where I spent high school, brings me back a little bit. And let me tell you this, it hasn't changed at all, and at the same time it's changed a ton. It's weird, yes, it's cliche, but it's the God honest truth. It's got a booming economy, booming population, booming influence, and this is as non-Mormon as I've ever seen it. Yet, the religion still has such a grip on the area and its people. It's hard to separate church and state as it is, and that's definitely the case in Salt Lake City, Utah. Every band, whether or not they're of the church or not, has some story to tell regarding the dominant religion in the state. Whether that's the Bonanza campout being canceled because of liquor laws, or just bands bucking the system. Some even were part of the system, and we'll go over that. But it has a unique talent base. And by that, I mean, you can't get outside of the state without recognizing at least a couple names. Donnie and Marie, Julianne Hough, plenty more. And we're going to get to that in 3Xs episode 4. So a couple of years ago, the Golden State Warriors were playing a playoff game in Salt Lake City, Utah. And Stephen Curry was asked, what is there to do in Utah for fun? And he really couldn't give an answer. Snowmobiling? Maybe? And that's kind of the truth of it all, is that unless you really know what you're looking for, you're not going to be able to find a fun, good time in Salt Lake City, Utah. But let's try and debunk that myth, because I believe that there are plenty of opportunities to see some great acts, see some good local bands with some nationally reaching, even internationally reaching talent. So let's start big. There are actually quite a few big venues here in town. The Vivint Smart Home Arena, or whatever they're calling it nowadays. It used to be the Delta Center. Then it was the Energy Solutions Arena. They need to figure out their name. There's USANA Amphitheater, the Deer Valley Amphitheater. There's even some stuff down in Orem and Provo that's pretty decent size. They're getting Keith Urban this summer. And so what I want to advertise is the fact that if you want to go big, you can definitely go big. Vivint is going to get Jonas Brothers, Ariana Grande, Shawn Mendes this summer. Even if you're going to go to USANA. First time I ever smelled marijuana in my life was for a Steve Miller Band concert at USANA Amphitheater. You can even go up to the Deer Valley Amphitheater. I have really got my eyes on John Butler Trio there this summer. They've also got St. Paul and Broken Bones warming him up. You might want to go a little smaller. You may not want to be outside. You probably don't want to be in an arena. The city's actually done a very decent job of gentrifying all of the buildings that have been around for a long time and haven't been used. I think to Trolley Square, where they took an old railroad depot and transformed it into a mall. The same thing has kind of gone for a few of these music venues. Specifically, I want to bring up probably one of my favorite venues, which is the Depot. It's downtown, it's kind of right in the heart of Salt Lake City, and they get some pretty decent names. You're going to get some maybe B-list acts that are still quality and probably a lot more fun. Switchfoot, Betty Who, Mariana's Trench, El King. There's plenty to find at that venue. It's intimate. It's got some layers to it. Perspective is everything. And I believe that you can find that at the Depot downtown. Even smaller and maybe just a little bit removed from downtown in a little place called Cottonwood Heights, the Hog Wallow Pub. It's an interesting spot. It's one of those places you can have conversation at the same time you can listen to some great music. I found this band when I was in Arkansas called Groovement, and they play at the Hog Wallow Pub like 3, 4, 5 times a year. They even get like the Christian Mills Band, the Moves Collective. Parking might be a little tight. The Uber ride from downtown, if you're going to stay there, might be a little long, but I guarantee you it's worth it. The interesting thing about these venues is that they aren't necessarily Mormon influenced anymore. Even in one of the suburbs that you would think would be super Mormon influenced, this place has a great selection to have fun, plus the great music to boot. And if you're going to be looking around anywhere else in the state, there are some interesting venues. You just have to keep your eyes out. I specifically think about Tuacahn Theater in St. George. Or you can go over to Windover and see any of the amazing acts, traditional acts, older acts that want to come through more of a casino venue. And the great thing about Salt Lake City in general, at least in comparison to where I think most people make comparisons, which is in Denver, is that compared to Denver, things in Salt Lake City are much closer. Granted, the quality may not be as great, but it's closer, it's more accessible, and you can do more within a tighter time frame within Salt Lake City. I am loving doing these reviews. And one of the fun things about doing these reviews is not only that I get to find new music and new cities to be able to present to y'all, but it's that I get to go and review my own musical tastes from periods past. So when I say I thoroughly enjoy being able to go past through my emo phase, I truly mean it. I get to go back to 2002 when I first really got into music and say, wow, emo music was huge. Just imagine me. Tight pants, eyeliner, the hair slicked all the way across the face. It embarrasses me a little bit to look back through those yearbook photos, but it doesn't embarrass me to go back through my playlist and say that there's some incredible music. And one of the bands that was probably the biggest at the time was a little band called The Used. Did you know they're from Orem, Utah? Yeah, emo music. Out of probably one of the most Mormon valleys in the entire world. If I'm going to say that my fashion taste sucked, I've probably got to run one of these songs through the gamut of this song sucks. Let's take Taste of Ink by The Used through the rings. So we've already mentioned that the state is known for music acts like Donnie and Marie. And I think it is hard to, again, separate the church from the state in this case. Orem, Utah is the little sister to Provo, Utah, which is where Brigham Young University is. If you're going to look at BYU in general, you're probably going to be thinking the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Or are they also going to have to change their name to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Choir? But on top of the choir, you've got Gladys Knight and Donnie and Marie. Showtime, gospel, choir music. And yet you get The Used right next door. Let's first start these things off with the cultural impact of The Used, which is the fact that they were one of the first progressive emo alternative rock bands to really make it big. And you got that in Orem, Utah. That's huge cultural impact. This is one of the first bands that headlined the Vans Warped Tour. That's incredible. You would never expect this to come out of the Utah Valley. Kind of a harder rock, talks about drug, sex, rock and roll. I guarantee you their bishop was not happy with them when they found out about this. But they were able to go so far from such a small place with such tight restrictions. And for the fact that they were genre benders that made it so big and made such an impact in the scene, you can't deny the fact that they made a giant mark on the music scene, then and today. Second, I would call this a de facto road trip song. I wouldn't necessarily be playing this in front of a house DJ, but I would definitely put it on in front of my friends that are taking a cross-country road trip. Can you imagine? So many people yell, "Cut my wrists and black my eyes." When The Used comes on, you have flashbacks. Again, tight pants, eyeliner, hair across the face. We all went through it. We all know it. We can all vibe to it. Road trip song, bring back the nostalgia, have some fun with your friends. And who can forget The Used's collab with My Chemical Romance, Under Pressure? Put that one on the road trip playlist too. Now let's try and run it through Bob Dylan's view, right? The content here, though, you have to remember, is very emotional. I don't think a folk singer would pick up this song. This song doesn't suck. In fact, it probably is great, but we didn't run it through that filter. On to the next. So of all of the songs that I think couldn't get any more Utah, it's a collaboration from two Utah artists, Imagine Dragons and Kaskade. Yes, both have Brigham Young University connections. Kaskade went there for a year. Most of Imagine Dragons members were there. The lead singer's pretty adamant against it since he didn't get in. But I can remember listening to Imagine Dragons for the first time on X96 as a kid and thinking, wow, this is going to be huge. And I believe that there might be the expectation for some backlash when I say that the original is good, but it's not as good as this. And that's hard to say for a song that has over 1 billion streams on Spotify. You can see Kaskade's imprint on Imagine Dragons in this song. And the irony is that I don't believe it has as heavy bass like you would expect from a DJ's EDM, whatever house song. Regardless, the collaboration is excellent. And I believe we should ask, is it great? I would play the song over the original Believer at a party for sure. There's still a little bit of bounce that makes it that house DJ mix. The chorus isn't necessarily there in as big of an aspect as the original, but it definitely has the beat that makes you dance. I think it mixes it up in an extraordinary way. I believe Kaskade pulled a few power moves that made it actually a little bit lighter, but made it a little more interpretive for that house scene. And to that degree, I have to give it its first thumbs up. Second, I think in the same way that it catches people off guard, expecting the original, but delivering on something inspired, an inspired remix, this song is absolutely catchy. You hear the lyrics right at the beginning, you know what to expect, and then it completely changes your expectations. Kaskade matched a lot of the original tuning to the song, so we changed a few things. I believe it holds a candle to the original, and so I give it thumbs up number 2. And to play off of the last 2 points, I believe because it is such a recognizable song, again, over a billion, yes, billion streams on Spotify, I think that most people want to hear this song, and I think that most people want to sing this song. 2 Utah artists playing ball with each other? What could get better? Make that collaboration, play that collaboration, dance that collaboration. Thumbs up, number 3. So I think it's hard not to mention Mormonism and its effect on people as well. The unique sounds of the typical hymnal gospel genre and what the Mormon church truly wants out of its artists. Mindy Gledhill was one of those artists, and I do mean was because at one point in time she was endorsed by the church. She had some songs in their productions. She was in their movies. She kind of had this hipster influence, folk rock, poppy, very light on the ears, but she left and found a new path. So her new album, Rabbit Hole, is a completely different story, a different path than her past projects. It kind of tells her story along the way, at least for its exploration into new sounds, new content. And yes, it still has all the amazing vocals you expect from Mindy Gledhill. She kind of reminds me a lot of Zooey Deschanel. Instead of the typical hipster progression that she's taken with the light sound, she tends more towards kind of the upbeat rock and roll in this album. She's pushing towards a heavier bass. There's some synthesizer integration. Kind of this reverb effect that keeps playing throughout the entire song. Cosmic Kiss is key to this entire album. The content of the song is progressive. It is definitely not LDS. It's a little more spiritual. But I think it is a true love song that juxtaposes very relative terms and understandings with a grand idea of meeting together. That's a love song. The album in general has some soft jazz influence. It's calming to the ears, again, like you would expect from Mindy. But now it's pushing ideology and pushing her genre. And it's integrating new sounds and introducing them to people that have probably never heard them, which is amazing. Another song on this album that I think is definitely worth a mention is Boo Hoo, which is a little more upbeat and wooden than Cosmic Kiss. So if one doesn't fit your kicks, the other will for sure. I know you were thinking it. Salt Lake City does not have a rap scene. But oh yes, they do. I think, and I hope not to get too racy, but because there is such a small African American population, the rap scene has definitely not been in the spotlight. Again, influence from the church. There are your Eminem types here, and gLife is one of them. I wouldn't say that you should put this guy in the category of some sort of rapper beat maker that won't make it anywhere. This guy's been making music for a long time. Maybe not in this iteration as gLife, but he's got over 10 albums under his resume, spanning multiple groups. He's kind of a jewel in the Salt Lake City region. And you can definitely hear that Eminem influence on his rap. But his lyrics are what really set him apart. It's actually gangster rap. I didn't know that there were gangs in Salt Lake City. I was expecting like trains and skiing. But yeah, you've got these gangs, you've got this hard rap, and gLife does it brilliantly. Somehow, he makes it work. But I think compared to the influences that he clearly draws from, immediately I hear Eminem, is how he carries his sound. I think it's underdeveloped at times, maybe a bit misguided from the other tracks. And yes, you want to hear an album with diversity, but you also want some consistency, right? I think to people like King Fantastic that really have that content down, but they can move their beats in different directions. This isn't gLife. Yet, he still has amazing things to say. The beats are okay, and for being one of the premier rappers in the scene, he's definitely worth a listen. Genuine content, genuine rap. I would check out My Rise by gLife. It's no secret, I love piano ballads. The orchestra from bands really adds an element to me that really grips my emotions. And such is the case for 1953 by local band The National Parks. Yes! Utah has national parks, and they've also got a band named The National Parks. When I first heard this song, it reminded me of two others. The Ones That Fall Apart by The Morning Of, and Purpose, Yes, by Justin Bieber. In both iterations, and now with this new song, 1953, I cried. I broke down in tears thinking about this brilliantly written love song. And 1953 is such a piano ballad. Truly, it's introspective, it's composed, it's got elements that really make it unique to both the scene and where it's born from. The band as a whole tends to be a little more kind of chill alternative rock. Indie, if you might call it that. So let's talk about the piano for starts. I think in so many moments, the National Parks could have added in more ranging notes, but they didn't. And for that reason, I think that the song really moves forward in a key way, genuinely attaching itself to the emotion of the content that it's writing about. One of the cool parts about this song in general is that there's a phone conversation recorded that matches that content. So not only do you get to hear about this great love song that they're writing about, but you also get to listen to the conversation of the two people that they've written about. Seriously, keep your ears out. It's cool. It doesn't come around to the second verse, but it really adds emphasis, effect. You get a direct source talking about their love story in a story about an amazing love song. The layers are unmatched. And I think the unique thing about the song that I've already touched on is the fact that there is that third perspective. It's not the band, it's not just the listener, it's the people genuinely involved in that song that they've been written about. I mean, just the line, "I know that boy's your brother's friend, but I don't think he keeps coming around for him." Feels, y'all. Too many people are caught up in their own views of what a song portrays. And this is one where you can genuinely see someone talking about the circumstance in a provocative way. Again, it's that layer that just heightens the element of this amazing piano ballad. So listen to this song with me this week. I guarantee you, if you're looking for that song to make you cry, if you're looking for something that's just light on the ears, well composed, this is that song, 1953, by the National Parks. Utah has some powerhouse politicians. Yes, I'm talking about Senator Mitt Romney, who was a former presidential candidate. And if Utah were to find a more genuine sound, they would probably try to elect that to the Senate as well. But alas, we've been graced with an amazing farce on Mitt Romney's name. And yes, I'm talking about the band Ritt, Momney. And yes, the band probably gets a little more due just because their name is a funny take on the senator. But hey, that's politics. This band warmed up for Death Cab for Cutie at Kilby Court's 20th anniversary and murdered the stage. And the song Young Adult has those chill vibes. It's got a male and female vocal. And yeah, they can introduce Death Cab with chill new sounds. It's calm, but it does have that punk rock sense to it. However, it's just easy listening. It reminds me a lot of Bad Books, but without all the distortion. And where this song in particular makes me listen is in the intro. There's melody, there's introspection. Yes, in the beginning, it starts off very calm, very chill, and at some point it does kind of throw that against the wall and hits you in the face, but it still keeps to the calm vibe that it always brings. The tandem vocals, the almost expected guitar breakdown. But don't get me wrong, there's ambiance, there's candor. The guitar solo even takes this easy, unfiltered amp tube sound to the storyline of easy listening. So keep an eye out for this band and listen to Young Adult. They will be a sound to reckon with in the Salt Lake Valley for a long time. It has been fun to revisit my high school days. It's been fun, in a sense, to revisit my middle school days. I'm super excited to have brought you Salt Lake City, Utah. Again, if you want to check us out, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter. DM me. I've even got a Snapchat up if you really want to see small, stupid things that the podcast is doing. Slide into those DMs. We'll be back. We're going to do new episodes in new cities with new scenes, new sounds. So I'm happy to have taken you to Utah. Maybe you come out here for the skiing. Maybe you come out here for the music. However you get your kicks off, there's always something you can do here. So I'm Hayes. This is the 3Xs podcast. We'll see you next time.